for joining us on our first version of a member meetup with special guests from Fanshawe. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. First, I think probably everyone can hear that my voice is not in the best of condition. So one of my colleagues, Lavina Golly from BC, has promised to pop in if I start hacking up a lung and can't properly speak with you all. But I'm hopeful that we can get through this short part of me speaking, because I am very excited to introduce everybody to Sarah Hamza and Andrew Kozowski from the CRI group at Fanshawe. Sarah joined CRI late last year as the Industry Business Development Manager at Fanshawe's College Center for Research and Innovation, CRI. And she is very happy to have the opportunity to help businesses grow right across Canada. And I'm hopeful we have people right from across Canada today, because this is not an Ontario only type of an event. So on that note, maybe I'll just ask people to pop into the chat and tell us where you're calling in from if you have a moment during this presentation. Sarah's expertise in engineering, sales, and management has made her a valuable asset to the CRI team. She's excited to help SMEs meet and exceed their goals, as well as expand Canada's economy through their unique opportunity to fund R&D projects. And I'm sure everybody is looking forward to hearing about the types of projects that they're able to fund. Sarah is the main contact for any project that you might have in mind to pursue. Sarah's colleague, Andrew, is also joining us, and he's the Industry Outreach and Communication Coordinator for Fanshawe's CRI. In this role, Andrew spreads the word within Fanshawe and to regional and nationwide industry community about the capabilities that they have there, equipment specialization, and the expertise that CRI can offer to small to medium businesses and support their R&D needs. Andrew's goal is to form more partnerships with growing businesses to increase the number of projects that their team of principal investigators and student research assistants work on to support the Canadian economy. And Andrew is a certified communication management professional and a member of the International Association of Business Communicators. It's been my pleasure to spend some time with Andrew and Sarah as members of CFIN, and it looks like we have lots and lots of people joining us now. So one last housekeeping note before I turn it over to Andrew, and that is when we have questions at the end of their presentation, which will be about 15 to 20 minutes, I think I'm going to ask you to pop them into the chat and we'll moderate them from there. Just because we do have a large audience, I don't want people to feel like they have to worry about talking over one another or anything like that. So feel free to pop questions throughout into the chat, and then we'll loop back around when Andrew and Sarah have done with their presentation. And with that, Andrew, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Sarah, and it's lovely to meet everyone on the call today. I'm just going to share my screen and start our PowerPoint, and then we'll get going with today's presentation. It'll be about 15 to 20 minutes altogether. So today I'd like to introduce, with my colleague Sarah, the Center for Research and Innovation at Fanshawe College. Fanshawe is a college, a post-secondary institution in London, Ontario, which is halfway between Detroit and Toronto. So we're well located between a lot of major centers in Southern Ontario and a major center for the food economy, a major growing area, food processing area. And we are actually one of Ontario's largest colleges. We have 4 campuses. And together we serve a region of about 500,000 people. And we have more than 200 degree, diploma, and certificate and apprenticeship programs. And we have more than 43,000 students each year, which gives us a network of more than 200,000 graduates worldwide. So we are backed by a very large institution with a lot of resources. We are a part of the strength of Fanshawe College, and specifically, we're going to talk about our research activities at the Center for Research and Innovation, or CRI as we're more commonly known. Our goal is to remove innovation barriers that small to medium-sized businesses face so that they can leap ahead competitively. We are really specifically focused on small to medium-sized businesses. You're going to learn a lot about our funding availability today through government resources, and those are specifically targeted on growing the small to medium-sized business economy. We provide expertise, technology, partner connections, funding, and grant resources, which is probably the most exciting part of what we offer, to help industries reach their fullest potential. Through the power of everything at Fanshawe, we are supported by leading scientists, cutting-edge facilities, and one of Canada's most established colleges, Fanshawe College, which has a spirit of supporting industry-driven research. We can connect industry partners with the resources within Fanshawe College and with our connections, such as our connections with CFIN. We are also a member of the Food Producers of Canada and many other industry organizations that can support us in connecting you and your business with the resources you might need. Our goal is really to drive economic growth in the region, and that is something that differentiates applied research institutions like Fanshawe from research that may take place at, for example, a university which is focused on publishing papers and patents. We really focus on that economic output and growing the economy. We're here to support business. We have many partners, as I've mentioned a little bit before. We are a member of Food Producers of Canada, certainly CFIN. We have a cannabis research license and are part of Cannabis Council of Canada. And we are connected to many funding sources such as NSERC, Tsunami, and the Ontario Bio Cleantech Applied Research Network. And we're going to explain some of those connections later on in the presentation. Oh, sorry, I just got a note from Sarah about doing the slide. Sorry about that. Back to the presentation. So the areas of support that we focus on at CRI are 4 areas. We support the agri-food and clean biotech area, which is focused on exploring coding different seeds in various agri-food applications and new methods to reuse waste products and develop clean technology. We have specific funding that can support your business with reducing waste and improving the clean processes in your operations. So that is an area that we focus on. A major area of our work is food and beverage testing. We have capabilities that support companies with recipe development and improvements. We have a large-scale fermenter. We do a lot of work in nutritional and shelf life testing and much more for food and beverage development. We also have facilities for material testing with our Fanshawe product testing lab. That has a lot of capabilities for things that may be involved in the manufacturing of your processes. We can do thermal, mechanical, environmental, and performance testing of materials. And we can also look at packaging for various industries. Finally, I've mentioned that we have a cannabis processing research license. This is a unique offering that not a lot of research facilities in Canada offer. We have advanced emulsification capabilities for oils for food and beverage applications, and we can purify different minor cannabinoids. We can actually reach up to 99% purity with our purification capabilities. So we're really able to specialize into a lot of areas that you could apply cannabis into innovative food and beverage products.
Thank you, Andrew. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just a final note on this slide. We have a great deal of funding that supports all of this. In fact, we have over $3 million of funding in agri-food R&D over the next 3 years.
Thank you. So I'll introduce where we do a lot of this research, and that is the CARIB Lab. So that's the Center for Applied Research and Innovation in Biotechnology. So we really focus on a number of different kind of umbrella categories like Andrew mentioned. And this includes things that fall under product development, manufacturing processes, quality assurance, and even product testing. If you're interested in seeing just a quick video of the tour of the labs for the CARIB Lab specifically, you can check out our website, it'll be there. And then there's a long equipment list here, and I'm happy to share it with anybody who's interested. I just wanted to highlight a couple of pieces of equipment, and those include, for those who are probably familiar with an HPLC, we do have one in-house, so that's usually used for things like nutritional testing when it comes to food and beverage. So measuring things like carbs, sugars, gluten testing can also be done there. You can do quite a bit of testing with HPLC, so it's very useful, and we have the expertise, of course. Then we have the fermenters or bioreactors. We actually have a larger scale one up to 40 liters. So if there was any interest in scaling up from, your smaller size, maybe 1 or 4 liter lab scale, bench scale, fermenter or bioreactor, we do have the capability to go larger. And we do have quite a bit of expertise in precision fermentation, which we're seeing a huge demand for recently here at Carob. Next that I wanted to highlight is our spray dryer. So if you have any liquid fractions that you want to kind of convert to a powder, maybe extend the shelf life through that or improve the handling, we can definitely do that. Again, these are all R&D scales. These are not something where it's like you can give us a big batch and we'll give you a huge batch of spray dried product at the end of the day. Next is our flash chromatography. So again, talking about that cannabis piece. If you're trying to extract cannabis or minor cannabinoids, we can do that through flash. We can also remove harmful compounds like heavy metals and solvents through that system. And then finally, the last one I want to highlight is our CO2 extractor. So if you're looking for getting pure solvent-free extracts, that's a great tool that you can use as well.
So we wanted to share a couple examples of work that we've done in our laboratories that have supported small to medium-sized businesses using some of the equipment and expertise that Sarah has mentioned. With the fritter shop, we were able to improve their nutritional shelf life using natural preservatives so that they could extend their shelf life while keeping their product natural. With Java Blends, a coffee brewer out of the East Coast, we helped them with shelf life stability to improve a new cold brew beverage that they wanted to launch on the market. And with Booch Kombucha, we improved their brewing processes using our fermentation capabilities. But a little bit more exciting, we have a video of one of our recent projects with Cedar Valley Selections. I think you'll enjoy this video.
My name is Soraya Fidel, and I am the mother and co-founder of Cedar Valley Selections. The company began in 2015 when my son received a $3,000 grant to start a business. And he came home and asked me if I could bottle my fattoush dressing. And that's how the idea was formed. From there, it was basically him harassing me for about 6 months to actually come up with a product. He was working on the business side of things, developed a business plan. We finally had a product. We were able to come up with a recipe that fit in a bottle that was stable, that you could sell on the shelves at the grocery store. So the pita chips came as a result of the dressing because they pair really well together. Our pita chips are very unique in that we use coconut oil. It's a whole nother animal when you introduce coconut oil into a manufacturing process. Just with a background in health and fitness, I know food, but I don't know or didn't have any experience in consumer packaged goods, in manufacturing. I reached out to CRI because I wasn't sure about the process. They got involved, and Mustafa was great. He mapped out everything from incoming materials, and we did videos of every step of the process. The bonus was that he looked at all of our costs as well.
My name is Mustafa Kadir. I'm an industrial engineer and a certified management consultant. Over the past few months, I worked with Cedar Valley to help them in designing a scale-up strategy that is aligned with their current business requirement, particularly the spike in sales order coming in through their market campaigns. The challenge that they were facing, which is typical in every startup, increase in number of customers, increase in orders, as well as, which is the most difficult part, the volume and size of placed orders. And the question is, do we automate manual operation? Or do we upgrade existing technology? Or do we act smartly in a way that we can streamline operations and manage the spike in sales, spike in orders, in a way that we prevent any unnecessary investment in technology? We provided them with more visibility in terms of cost structure for every single unit produced. Today, they have the experience and know-how to assess the automation level of every single part of their production process, where they can reassess this in the future on their own, independently, and decide whether further investment is needed to meet the further growth in their market size. More orders are coming in, and fulfill their dream in terms of growing their business beyond the regional market to even the USA.
Why not get the experts to help you? Don't try and reinvent the wheel, and just get people out there that know what they're doing, that have experience, that can help you along the way. You got to get that network of people to help you out, because we're all in this together, and it's a win-win situation. I highly recommend it to anybody. It was a very positive experience.
Yeah, so that we always love showcasing that video, because they started off small, and now if you've been to Costco recently, they actually have them there now. So they've really gone from that small stage and made it to the top, which is what we're really here for, you know, to help during that process. So the next thing, like we mentioned, we do quite a bit of cannabis innovation research. And again, that's extractions, purifications, any method development as well. Like Andrew mentioned, we can get to purities up to 99%. And again, this is really, it ties in with the food and beverage industry. There's a huge push for innovation in new beverage products, especially. There's been quite a few requests of kind of infusing beverages with minor cannabinoids, for example. I mean, Andrew's going to talk about a really cool product that came up in the next slide. But again, there's no limitations to kind of what you can do and what you can innovate with this.
So Sarah mentioned the really neat thing about R&D is that you can really be innovative with it. And we encourage any small to medium-sized business that works with us to really think outside of the box. And an example of someone who really thought outside of the box was a business who approached us, who was looking to create a cannabis product that used coffee beans. So a coffee product that was somehow infused with cannabis. And we were able to use our seed coating technology to actually coat coffee beans with CBD. So we created a completely new product. And this is something that was an iterative process where we discussed with our principal investigators to address the challenge that the consumer, the client had when they were first coming up with the project. So they didn't come to us thinking we want to coat a coffee bean seed. It was a outside of the box process where we worked together and developed that as we worked on the project.
And then finally, our Fanshawe product testing facility. So this is more so the material testing facility. And you might think, well, how does this relate to food and beverage? Well, the way I like to tie it in is that you can look at your packaging. So if you're planning on transporting your packaging, for example, maybe it's going to be shipped overseas. Maybe that could be through airplanes. Maybe it's across the border through trucks. Maybe you want to look at the vibrational effects on your packaging. That's all stuff that we can look at. We have environmental test chambers. So if you wanted to look at your packaging under different environmental conditions, maybe different temperatures, different humidities, for example, we can do all of that. And there's a slew of mechanical, electrical, and of course, performance testing that we can do as well. So if you can think of a way of framing it under an R&D project under food and beverage, we can definitely help with that. And the thing to keep in mind, so there's 3 different funding streams, main funding streams that we use. And I'll talk about those in the next slide, but one of them is very flexible. So if there was a material test that fell under manufacturing, but maybe not so much under food and beverage, that's also something we could cover as long as you're within Southern Ontario. Actually, Andrew, if you don't mind going to the next slide, we can just jump right into it. So as I mentioned, there's 3 main funding streams. So the one that touches on the manufacturing is Tsunami, and it is specific to Southern Ontario, unfortunately, but it is very flexible. So anything to do with manufacturing, we can cover up to 75% of the R&D cost. Now, the Canadian BioCleanTech C-Barn is also specific to Southern Ontario, unfortunately, and that has to do again with clean technologies, bioenergy, bioproducts, biorefineries, waste management, all of that can fall under it. But now what's nice, because again, not everybody's in Southern Ontario, is that we have NSERC funding, and NSERC will cover anywhere in Canada. Now it does need to be within those areas of focus. So agri-food, food processing, food testing, or bio-waste. But again, if you're within Canada, you've had your business running for at least 2 years, have at least 2 employees, we can cover up to 75% of the project cost. And again, there's really no limit on how many projects you can do with us. So if you have a huge project that's above the 100K limit, we can split it up into multiple ones and still get that 75% coverage every time. So that's all we have for you today, folks. Again, my email's on the screen. Follow us on social media by all means. We would love to hear from you. If you have any R&D projects, even you're not sure if it'll be eligible or not, please reach out. We're happy to talk to you, kind of connect you with our expert team as well to see where we can, how we can move things forward together.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you very much, Linda, for the introduction. Our website is fanshawe.ca/research, and you can find some examples of our successes and also an introduction to the laboratory facilities in a video that takes you on a tour of them.
I've seen that video. It's awesome. I would encourage you guys to take a look at that. Thank you so much, Andrew and Sarah. That was really interesting and a great overview. Love the case studies that you were able to share with us. I see we have about 30 people in the meeting, so I am going to suggest again, if you have a question, maybe you want to drop it into the chat so that we don't have a lot of talking over one another. And then we will, I'll read it out, assuming yes, this presentation is recorded. That's the first question. And we'll make sure that you guys have access to it so that you can have a look back at anything that you may have missed or need to review again. Questions for Andrew, for Sarah, for myself, or I have a couple of colleagues on the line. Please feel free. So for NSERC, does that funding only service R&D, or can it be used for equipment funding for new manufacturing?
So it is specific to R&D, and I always tell clients this, we have to frame it into an R&D project to get that coverage in.
And is that something, Sarah, that you and Andrew might be able to help with if a client or potential client isn't sure how to best frame that?
Absolutely, absolutely. We always have people come in and, they're like, oh, I just want a shelf life test. And of course, funding's not just going to cover a fee for service item. Right. So we always try and find a workaround where we can compare the shelf life to like a before and after by adding an additive or something like that. We always try and frame it in a way that we can try and get you as much coverage as possible.
And someone was looking for clarification. Is the research and funding only for small to medium-sized companies?
Yes, it is, but up to, I think the company can have up to 500 employees is what the definition is for the medium-sized companies.
Okay. Okay, a few questions here from Emily. Do you have team members with expertise in cell culturing?
We do, yes.
And do you have materials with a full list of the equipment available at the facility?
So that's the list that was in the presentation, and if the presentation will be available, you can check it there, or feel free to reach out by email. I'm happy to send that list out as well.
If anybody wants to share their contact info in the chat and be able to get in touch with others and so on, feel free to do that as well. And last question that Emily had, how do you handle IP that's generated from the activities? I know the answer to this and I love it.
Yeah, so since we're a college, the IP is the company's completely. Unlike universities, none of it stays with us.
Okay. What are the standard project timelines, discovery to benchtop to scale up? Do we get an assigned project manager?
Yes, so there is an assigned project manager for every project. The timelines will vary on how large the project is. Keep in mind, obviously, industry in comparison to colleges and universities, the timelines tend to be longer. But again, if it's within our scope, and we would agree on timelines prior to starting.
Might Sarah or Andrew, might one of you have an example of how long something that you've done recently might take? I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Andrew, any off the top of your mind that you can think of? It's very varied.
Yeah, I'd say, for example, the video that we had, the Cedar Valley project where we were looking at their manufacturing process and optimizing their automation. That was probably about a half-year project altogether, from initial discussions through to bringing on the principal investigator through to completion.
That's pretty quick. I'm just going to ask a question since I seem to be put myself in charge of the moderating of questions here. I'm going to throw one in.
Sure.
Do you use students in the work that you do with industry?
Yes, absolutely. That's, again, one of the benefits of being a college and being able to get this funding is that we use the expertise within the college. So our research assistants are from programs at Fanshawe. Actually, some of the funding can actually cover a kind of hiring a co-op student if for an R&D project. So if you wanted a student even on site, I guess this is kind of off topic to your question, but that is something that we can potentially look into and get up to 75% coverage on that student coming in, and they would work under a PI, a principal investigator. Again, that's part of the college.
Oh, okay. No, I'm super glad I asked that. That's interesting. So Ron's saying here, many small businesses don't have the expertise and the time to do R&D. What support would you offer in this case?
We would be the support, basically. That's what the CRI is here for. So we were literally designed to help small and medium businesses who don't have the expertise, who don't have the time, who don't also have the funds as well. You may or may not have them. So that's why the funding jumps in, the expertise from the college kind of jumps in to help the SMEs grow.
And to just build on that a little bit, then, if somebody does have some internal R&D, whether that's somebody who works on it along with other things that they do, or maybe they have a small to medium-sized department, would you work hand in hand with them in that case?
Yes, we can. So the only thing is that it's not, because a lot of companies sometimes ask, well, hey, I'm an expert in this R&D. Can I come into your labs and do the R&D? That's one thing we can't do. So we would do the R&D for you, the project work for you with our experts, but we are also constantly meeting with the companies. It's not just, oh, you gave me the project, okay, when it's done, we'll talk to you. No, there's constant weekly meetings, there's constant back and forths, making sure we're meeting all the requirements. If they're the experts on that field, we'd be consulting them probably on a more regular basis as well. So it's not kind of a hands-off approach.
Question from Lavina, good question. Are you able to help arrange central location tests or home use testing for consumer research as part of what you do?
Do you mean, can you clarify that just a little bit? I'm not sure I understand.
Sure. Yeah, like a CLT or a home use test as part of like sensory validation. I know a lot of companies kind of skip out on doing this, and I think for those of us who've done R&D, we're used to that roundtable conversation of just everyone kind of looking at the product and trying to decide, does it meet the needs? But in fact, you know, you should be ideally going out to your target consumer to do that research. But I know that type of research can be quite hard to arrange and expensive. So just wondering if you've got that ability to access, you know, different demographics or populations to help support a company so they can really understand, you know, is the consumer really going to respond well to their product?
Right. So consumer testing, we don't particularly do consumer testing, but what I will say, not to shut that down, is going back to that idea of hiring a co-op student. So again, we can fund hiring a co-op student up to 75%. And what we've had some companies do is actually, you know, as long as it's within that our umbrella categories and it matches the funding requirements, you can hire, for example, a marketing student to go out and kind of talk to these consumers and do that kind of material or consumer testing survey. So that would be one workaround to it. But personally at the college, no, we don't do consumer testing.
And I'm just going to throw this in here. What I mostly heard there was, don't say no to anything in your mind. chat with
Yes.
somebody over there and see if there isn't a way to make it work within the confines of what your mandate is.
Exactly.
Never say never. Okay.
I'll jump into that too as well, Linda.
Mhm.
If somehow Fanshawe within our capabilities doesn't have the expertise or ability to take on a project, we also will consult with some of our partners as well to potentially find a solution that may satisfy the need that you have, even if it isn't within Fanshawe.
Okay. Yeah, you do have a lot of good connections. That's good to know. Thank you. I'm just going to read this out from Jim. It's probably not a question to be answered here necessarily, but I want to make sure people see it in the chat. Jim is looking for an agri-tech startup to feature on stage at a Life Sciences Innovation Summit in October. He has put in the website there, which is nextgreatbigideas.com. We can discuss this as we finish up with our questions here if you like, but otherwise feel free to take a look at that or reach out to Jim Wilson, and you'll see that information in the chat. What is the maximum number of projects that you can take on in the same quarter? Do you have some limits around how you do that?
No. So if it's from the same company, really, there's no limits on how many projects you can do with us. Maximum number in terms of capacity at the CRI will really depend on how big the projects are. So again, if you have a project in mind, just reach out.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because if it's something that's very big and complex, you may have a little bit less capacity for additional. Yeah, okay. Does NSERC have support programs for existing R&D programs, or does it have to be a new project?
It can be an existing one as long as we're doing, a portion of it. Like I said, it's not something where your company will come in and use our lab facility, but if it is a project that's like an R&D component of something you're already working on, by all means, we can help with that.
Okay. I think you may have answered this, but let's make sure. Can the client be on site while you do the R&D?
No, not like if it's just to kind of watch. I don't even think we can do that, to be honest. We do lab tours, but outside of that, it's really just the experts that use the lab's space.
Okay, so just maybe building on that a little bit, do you have fee for service type of opportunities? If somebody needed to use your lab to do their own research, could they purchase time?
Unfortunately not. That's also another one we don't do. It's very close to, you're part of Fanshawe, you use the Fanshawe labs.
Got it. Okay. Can you expand on the agri-tech and manufacturing R&D, please? That's
okay. It's very broad. So it might be a little bit difficult, but I noticed in your comment, you do kind of agri waste. So that would fall under the agri-tech and agri-food component of things. Again, NSERC, which covers all of Canada, will cover you for bio-waste. So if that's what you're looking at, it absolutely falls under that category. Under agri-tech, again, for NSERC, it can be a little bit harder to fit in for certain ones if it's not food specific. Although, again, it's just such a broad term. It'll really depend on what project you're thinking of doing. I don't want to tell you, hey, no, just because you're working on the technology side of maybe the system that you use in your agricultural facility, that NSERC's not going to cover it. It will really depend on a case-by-case basis.
Good idea to have that conversation. Jennifer, nice to see you here again. I know who Jennifer is, and she's talking about the soil amendment part of the business that she has from waste. So I guess you need to tie it back to the growing of food in this particular case.
Well, again, NSERC will cover bio-waste, so that totally would fall under it.
Okay. Jennifer, have we covered what you were looking for, or maybe you guys want to have a separate conversation later? Maybe just unmute yourself if you want to add to that.
And Jennifer, I've written down your contact information, so I'll send you an email after this presentation too.
Ron is asking, and Ron, if I don't have your question right, please pop in. Whom do you partner with? And you've said BC, so I'm assuming you're asking who are partners that they work with in British Columbia.
That's correct.
Okay, so we don't have per se partners in British Columbia, like our funding streams will cover the different areas of Canada, but at the end of the day, all the testing would be done at our facilities here.
Okay, but there isn't anyone that you work with in British Columbia to, you know, that would be assisting a small scale food processor here in BC.
No, not that we work directly with. I mean, we're connected with them. I know BC actually out west has quite a few opportunities. I mean, similar to ours, I think even, I'll have to remember which college it was, but they have similar opportunities. Again, we don't partner with them. We do all the work in-house here, but the funding can be used for companies that are set outside of our kind of local area.
I'd be interested to know where in BC there is a facility similar to what you described in Fanshawe.
I'll have to look back to it because I remember there were a few people I connected with, a couple of companies in BC that said that they were working with specific colleges there. But again, I'll have to refresh my memory on that.
Okay, they may be working with specific colleges, but none of them that I'm aware of have, you know, all of the
Funding.
facilities that, not a question of funding, but the facilities that you know, you just described.
Okay.
UBC is in the process of trying to build an innovation center on campus.
Okay. Okay.
It's you know, it's 725 square meters, and
Wow.
judging from your photograph, yours is about 3 times that size, if not more.
I don't know how many square feet we have. Andrew, do you have an idea?
Yeah, just not counting our product testing facility, which is a whole separate facility that's really large, but our food processing labs are approximately 3,500 square feet altogether. So they're not enormous, but they do have a lot of capability.
Okay.
And Ron, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to meet with Lavina yet, but she may be able to help you with what you're looking for out in BC. So certainly feel free to reach out through the CFIN system as well. I think if you don't mind, Sarah and Andrew, if you want to just build a little bit more, because I'm sensing a little bit of confusion on how do you help people that aren't in Southern Ontario. You know, if they aren't going to be able to come in there, not that you need them to come in there, but is that just facilitated through regular Zoom meetings like this? Can you just build on that a little bit more? Because
yeah, absolutely. So again, they would send us whatever product that they would want us to test. If it's a process improvement, it may make things a little bit more complicated, obviously, without being able to send somebody there. So it really would depend. But generally speaking, you know, they ship us samples or they ship us the product that they want us to test, and we do it here. And we would obviously communicate via Zoom or virtual meetings. Again, we've worked with a lot of companies across Canada, one of the recent ones being on the East Coast. And again, it's just virtual communication and working through those barriers.
And I think, Ken, that answers your question. Yes, they will work with people outside of Ontario. Lavina brought up an excellent question. This is something that we all get quite a bit of as regional innovation directors with CFIN. Co-packers can be difficult to find for people. Is there any support that you can provide in that regard?
So it won't be anytime soon, but we are working on kind of developing a facility for packaging, because again, we know that's a huge gap. And we're working on getting the equipment. It's just in the process. And of course, you know how long that can sometimes take. We have a timeline that says, oh, we'll have it done by the end of the year. And of course, things don't work out that way, but it is in our pipeline. And by all means, I'm sure we'll blast it all over social media once it's up and running.
And the other part of that really is kind of the co-manufacturing. There are sometimes people who don't have the either at the stage of their business that they're at, they aren't going to look to manufacture themselves. They're looking for somebody else to make the product and package it. Perhaps you have some connections in that regard if somebody's looking for a specific type of manufacturing.
Yes, we definitely have partnerships that we could possibly leverage or at least connect them with. So if there was interest, we can look into our network and see depending on what the product is.
Okay, so to your earlier point, Andrew, if you aren't the ones to help them, you might know somebody who is.
Exactly.
Okay. Can cannabis and dairy products be processed on site? Are companies allowed to bring in additional machinery for processing? And if so, what are the regulations around that?
Yeah, so we have a cannabis research license, so that's done at our facility, of course, specifically. In terms of dairy products, processing it, I mean, doing the testing on it, absolutely. I'm not sure how involved you're thinking when it comes to processing. And then bringing in additional machinery is also available. We have a space specifically set aside for that. If there was additional machinery that wanted to be brought in, so we could do testing on it, or maybe, you know, develop SOPs for it, you know, improve your process on it, whatever that is, we have the lab space for that as well.
Somebody is asking for your contact info. I know you had it
I'm
on one of
just,
your slides.
typing that into the
Are you
chat.
just, I thought you looked like you were studiously typing away there. So we'll have that for you. Any other questions from the group? There we go. That's the website and Sarah's contact info. That's fun, Andrew. You gave out Sarah's contact info and not yours, Andrew. That's fun. Yes, please go
I'm the
ahead.
primary. If you contact us through our website, it'll go to me. So
It'll go to Andrew.
Sorry, I couldn't resist but to poke at you a little bit with that one. Somebody was asking a question out loud, and I think I talked over them.
No worries. I just had a really quick question. Just curious about like regulatory support and what type of kind of expertise you have within your team. Are you able to help with like NHP applications or novel food applications or anything of that sort?
Unfortunately, it's not quite what, I mean, we have the expertise, but every time I ask my team if we want to take this on, they say no. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to say probably not. We probably can't help you on that front. The other thing to note, we are an R&D facility, so our Carob labs are not kind of ISO certified. Our material testing lab is ISO, and it's a federal controlled goods. It's under the federal controlled goods program. But in terms of helping with applications, I mean, if somebody really needs the help, they can reach out. I can ask my team again, but I can't promise that they're gonna take it on.
No problem. Yeah, these are quite complicated and hard to do, I know.
Yeah.
Do you ever partner up with other colleges to take some of these programs or projects to another level?
Yes, we're actually, like, we have really good relationships with all the colleges, actually, because they have similar funding streams to ours. And again, depending on your location, maybe you want to reach out to one of the other colleges. And sometimes some of the other colleges use up all their funding, and then, you know, they come to us and we still have funding left. So we can definitely partner on projects. We're very close with Niagara College, for example. I mean, I can name a whole list of them, but by all means, yes, there's always, we're all interconnected.
And on the funding front, for anybody who's on the call, it's also possible to make use of a program like Fanshawe's if you're applying for a CFIN grant, for example, and you need a partner on the R&D side. So that's something to think about if you are filling in an application for one of our funding programs or any others. Fanshawe, you know, if it's the right project, could potentially be a partner on something like that. Anything else from the group? I don't think I've missed any. If I've missed your question, please yell at me now. I think we got them all. Ron, I hope you saw that Lavina put a note in about attack in the Okanagan, but as she noted, it's beverage only, not food. I think we've caught up with all of the questions. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And again, thank you to Andrew and to Sarah for taking the time to give us an overview and answer more specific questions for the group here today. Please feel free to reach out to myself or any of my colleagues. We have innovation directors all across Canada. You met Lavina today. Tyson's been on the line. We also have someone in Quebec and in the prairies, and we're happy to make connections wherever we can. Let us know what you thought about this type of a format. If you guys want to see more of it, please do let us know. If you think it was the worst thing you ever saw, please don't let us know that. I'm just kidding. Of course, you should let us know either way. But we are aiming to improve our member meetups and make them more interesting for our membership as we go along. Thank you very much, everybody. We did record, and we'll make sure that we reach out to the group. And if there's any follow-up questions, reach out again to any of us, and we can take those offline from here.
Thank you so much, Linda, for having us. Absolute pleasure to see all of you and take the questions. And like Linda said, please reach out at any time.
Wonderful. With that, I guess we'll give you 12 minutes back for your lunch hour.
May I make a quick note about this Life Sciences Summit?
Please.
Is that okay? Thank you. And thank you so much for allowing me to do so. My name's, of course, Jim Wilson. I'm with the Hamilton Health Sciences Foundation Board of Directors, and as a fundraiser for McMaster Children's Hospital, we are organizing a Life Sciences Innovation Summit on Monday, October 2nd, where we are inviting industry leaders and startups from across the country to a one-day speakers event, pardon me, which is in the form of a TED Talk, but we can't call it a TED Talk because we don't want to give them any money. And what we're doing is inviting industry leaders from various sectors of the Canadian life sciences community, including agritech. And I'm actively looking for a startup in agritech that we can feature on stage. Happy to answer any questions, but very quickly, the industry leaders invited to give a 15-minute State of the Union talk on what their company's doing and what their sector is up to. And at the end of their talk, mention what they see as the next great big idea on their horizon, hence the name of the event, and then hand the microphone over to a startup working on that idea. And the startup's got 7 minutes to say, here's who we are, this is what we're doing, this is why it's cool. And it's intended to be a networking event. It's non-sectarian, if you will, because we're inviting groups from therapeutics, cell and gene therapy, genomics, agritech, medtech, the whole gamut. And again, we're looking for a startup in agritech to feature on stage. If you're interested, please get in touch with me. And we're also doing a podcast, the NGB Ideas podcast, where we're interviewing potential speakers, and would love to have perhaps someone from this call on a future show to talk about all the exciting stuff that's going on in this sector. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. I just reposted your message, and I'm going to suggest that you head on over to the Yodel Open Forum so that you can reach even more of the membership, because we've started to lose people as lunch hour draws to a close, but please feel free to do that.
And Jim, I've captured your contact information that you sent me earlier, so I'll follow up with you.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the day.